Hi, I'm Lou Rosalia, and this is Crew Call. Do you think it's easier to do live or live to tape? Well, it depends. And life and tragically sometimes death on the set. This week on Crew Call. All right, guys, welcome. It's been a crazy week. Everybody's been all over the place. Mr. Gloss, you got back from fishing. Frank's in rehab. Not really, but it looks it. And Joe's in the studio, and thank you all for being here. My usual cast of characters, professionals all. Joe, Frank, and Gloss, thanks for being there. I look forward to today's show. It's going to be really interesting. I wanted to talk about something that that happened on the studio set, and it has to do with live and pre-tape, and it has to do with who really benefits from it. Is it the cast that's on screen, or is it the crew that's behind screen? So before we even get into it, Joe, being the elder statesman, would you please explain to the lovely audience and to myself just what live versus pre-tape actually is?
Okay, here's one of those terms that gets destroyed because there's so many versions of this. Live is easy.
Okay.
It's live. It is what it is. If it's a live concert, it's a live concert. If it's a live talk show, it's a live talk show. If it's a live blah, 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 it's a live blah, blah, blah. Live to tape is different than pre-tape sometimes.
Okay.
We use the term live to tape because you're trying to do a live show, but you're not going out live. It's not being transmitted. We're trying to cut it so it stays to time and everything's there. Pre-tape is just that. Before you do anything, you're just taping. I know it sounds the same, but it gets used differently in the industry. And everybody, it's not even common language from studio to studio. Producers use it differently. Everybody uses the word differently. You're pre-taping a segment.
Yeah.
That's another thing. You have a live show, but you pre-tape a segment for the live show.
Yeah.
So, and then there's straight up taped, which is just recorded, and it's done in pieces and in segments, episodic stuff, music videos, things like that. And before I stop, none of this is on tape.
I was just going to say, are these VHS tapes, beta tapes?
Right. And that's a phrase that sticks.
Yeah. Like Kleenex, Xerox, all that other stuff.
Yeah. Okay. I'm done talking.
Well, that was a great explanation. And it sounds like the different variations are just as varied as the word producer. You're a money producer, you're an executive producer, you're a Broadway producer. It's one of those things. Frank, you seem to have the most insight on this. Who do you think has the biggest advantage? Behind the camera or in front of the camera talent for pre-tape versus live?
Talent, for sure.
Why?
Because you can't mess up as a camera operator. If you have to hit a certain point, no matter how many times they mess up, you still have to hit your mark every time. You're expected to do that. You know, the talent could mess up and then be like, oh, they fumbled a word or whatever. It's just the two different dynamics of the positions, and I guess the hierarchy of the position, where like you're just expected to always land your mark every single time.
So you don't even think about it. It's just whatever it is, it is. You got to be there. You got to be on. You got to get it.
Yeah, I mean that's why I enjoy doing live stuff way more than pre-tape stuff, because if you happen to miss a mark by a little bit, it doesn't matter. You keep going, and like so there's no. It's just the live atmosphere is just constantly fluid and just keeps moving no matter what. And in pre-tape, I mean, certain shows could they'll stop and do a camera move again, but it again, like what I was saying before, is like you're expected to always hit it.
Hey, Gloss, do you get nervous or relief from knowing prior to the gig you're going to go do, if it's a live show or if it's a pre-tape show? Because Frank just said it really doesn't matter in terms of performance, but mentally, is there a game to play, or how do you manage that?
Yeah, maybe like I'll go back to sports as I always do. You know, it's like playing against a really good team, playing against a really bad team. You know, you show up to a game against a bad team, you're like, all right, we're going to roll over these guys. You know, we don't have to be too prepared. You know, we show up to a game against a really good team and you're like, all right, we got to actually be on our A game. But it doesn't really matter here because, like Frank said, it's exactly right. No matter what the shot is, no matter what you're doing live or pre-tape, you have to perform. You have to do your job correctly. You know, you have to get the right shot. And I've had times where we were shooting and I had a great shot on a pre-tape and the talent messed up and I'm like, nice, I get another shot at this, you know? So yeah, it's different, but it's not like you don't treat them differently.
Right.
You know, you treat them the same.
Right. Joe, I didn't get to ask you. I was relying on you for the definition, but what's your opinion on it? What do you think?
Obviously, I agree with both of them. When it comes to the disciplines for the operators, from a producer standpoint, I'd rather do live. One, because I'm built to do that. That's my DNA. But secondly, because there's a big savings in time. When we do a live show and the show goes off on, whatever post it goes off at,
Right.
I get up and I leave. If you're doing live to tape or you're doing pre-tape or you're doing any of those things, when the show's over, you usually then have to go sit in an edit room and post out the show, and that could take another 6 hours.
Yeah, whatever it is.
So that, from a producer side, it kind of sucks.
I was also going to say, like, it's also like a mental switch. I feel like that especially for talent, like, I feel like in their head, underlying, like, that they know they can mess up. So if they do, then they'll be like, if they fumble a word, they'll just stop, right? And then let's do it again. If you fumble a word while you're live, you just keep going and you get through it. It doesn't matter, and you don't even remember that it happened. But that, that subconscious knowing that you have another shot at it if you do mess up, I feel like that has a lot to do with it.
And you know what?
That's a big,
Go ahead, Doug.
Lou, before I jump, that's a big thing in music. Because if you're playing and it's a live concert, you just play. Break a string, drop a stick, miss a word, forget the lyrics. You just keep going, as Frank said. You just keep going. But if you're shooting, a music video, or you're shooting an event that's being aired a month later, they make you sit there and you're going to go back, sing it again. It's like being in a recording studio.
Yeah.
We're going to go back and we're going to do it again. Or the talent says, oh, I think I was off pitch in that one thing. Or the guitar player is annoyed because he did something. So music becomes even more dramatic because you've got a lot of people who potentially could screw up.
Yeah.
And then you have all of the television, if it's a video thing, you've got all of those people involved in it. So those are all the different worlds. And these guys both said it perfectly. Live's live and it just goes.
Yeah, that's why movies take years to be made. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, imagine if a movie was just shot live.
Right.
Yeah, live and
or live to tape, any of those type of things. That would be. It wouldn't take years to. You could shoot one 5-minute scene 100 times.
Yeah. I was listening to, and Glaus, I'm going to ask you if you got any war stories when I come back to you. But I was listening to something on YouTube, Joe. This guy, and I apologize to him if I get his name wrong, Rick Beato. He's got this great.
Oh, Rick!
Do you actually know Rick? Joe from Triple S?
Joe from Triple S.
Anyway, Rick Beato was a really talented musician, and he was listening and reviewing the new Adele song. We were just talking about Adele. And he really appreciated the fact that it was her as a singer really singing live almost, and the piano. And all they had was a drum machine just to do the actual, keep a bass, keep a beat. And they actually had a string bass. And he was rejoicing in the imperfections of a great performance because the liveness of it overcame the fact that she was maybe just a fraction off tune. So he was bashing auto-tune and all that other stuff. But I think that's your point.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
100%.
Live is live. Glaus, you got any war stories on pre-tape tape? or you just
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, like I remember one of the longest shots I've ever done was for Good Morning Football, and it was a Halloween special. And I actually have the clip if maybe we can show it, but it was really long. I started from the monitor, I pulled off, I went all the way around the table. They had all these props, and I went all the way into the entranceway where the talent was coming out in their costumes. And we were supposed to tape that, and I was like, all right, cool. Like I'm not that nervous, you know. We're gonna tape it. I'll have a couple whacks at this, you know. I can maybe try a few different things. And then they took forever to get the set. Producers are, you know, starting to freak out, like where's the talent? And they're like, all right, you know what, we got to do it live, Scott. Like you better get it right, you know. So yeah, I was kind of just tossed right in the fire, and I was like, oh shit. So exactly, playing to your point, Lou, I did get much more nervous having to do this shot live than having to pre-tape it. Even though if I got on the first take pre-tape, you know, it's really no difference. The only difference is that red light, for you that don't know, the tally light, the on-air light that is on
what's
your
it
camera.
called? Tally light?
A tally light, yeah. When your camera's taken by, when they take your camera in the control room and you're live, your camera's live on air, you get a little red light that's on everybody's camera. That's how you know that you're live, so you don't swing your camera or do something stupid, check your focus, something like that.
So I'm sidetracking, but this is interesting to me. So that light, you always see the on-air talent, like what camera am I looking at? But that's also for you guys as well, huh? I didn't know.
Oh yeah,
I didn't know that.
100%,
It's probably
100%.
more
Because
so for us, but yeah, I would hope.
I thought you turned it on. You were like, you know, okay, toggle switch.
No. Well, so there's one on both sides of the camera, on both sides of the lens. One for you to see whether you're in the viewfinder, or for Steadicam, it's on their monitor that they're looking at, or for me, it's a little box that has a red light that sits on top of my monitor, usually on a jib. But then there's also one on the front end of the lens that I can't see, but that's what the talent is supposed to be following.
Following.
Not that that means they're always following it. Some are better than others.
Yeah, that's true that. Topic 2, I want to address this gingerly because it's a current matter and it was a tragic nonetheless. This week, Alec Baldwin fired a prop gun on set. He killed, unfortunately and sadly and tragically, an award-winning cinematographer, Hala Hutchins, and he wounded the director, Joel Souza, who is now out of the hospital. It's been a few days since it happened. This is tragic on every level, and I don't want to focus on any of it outside of our condolences to the families. But I wanted to talk about, Joe, do you think the audience equates media and entertainment workspace with life and death situations? Although it happens, and it has happened a few times. I mean, how dangerous have you found it over your 30 plus years of being in the industry?
Yeah, it's not a few times. It's a lot of times.
Yeah?
A lot of times. But it doesn't get any pub because if a rigger falls off a 40-foot climb, he's not making the papers.
Yeah.
If a lighting grid falls down and hits a camera op, it's not making the papers.
Yeah.
So it happens a lot. I mean, you're talking about. I mean, I can go industry by industry by industry and tell you how dangerous all these things are. Starting with film, think about a war show. A war film. Think about car wrecks, car chases, any of that stuff. Yeah, it's done by stuntmen, but there's a lot of things moving and flying. And one thing, like somebody, a shell left in a prop gun, a tire underinflated, a lift moved a little bit over, a crane that's hanging out too far on a film set. You can just keep lighting grids that are hanging over talent, riggers setting up. Frank just came back from a gig down in Atlanta doing a fight with a piece of technology that Frank can explain that's literally hanging over the rink. That thing breaks loose, and everybody says, oh, it's safety. It's not. It can break loose.
Yeah.
Stuff happens. Cranes crash in New York City. They shouldn't, but they do. And extreme shows, extreme sports, you got skiers, you got underwater divers, you got just the list goes on and on and on and on and on. That there's operators in all those places.
Right.
People climbing, the summits. There's operators going all the way up there with them.
Yeah.
So people do die a lot in our industry and have over the years I've been in it. Fortunately, I've never been on a set where somebody was killed. Been on plenty of sets where people got tragically hurt, but I've never been around a death. I'm sorry I went off on that because
No.
just one of those things that people always think, we're insulated from all of that. And It's not.
Yeah.
Accidents do happen, and we're at high risk.
Yeah, and me being the layman of the group and not, that attached to the actual on-scene stuff, you don't think of it. You hear of tragic accident, you hear a couple of times it happened to famous actors. One guy was, playing with the gun, and he was playing roulette, and it was interesting because he killed himself not from the projectile, but the gas that came out had such force that it actually cracked his skull, and the skull fragment is what killed him. So,
And I don't want to stay on this point too
yeah.
long, obviously, because I don't want to get caught in something we shouldn't be discussing.
Yeah.
But there's people on that set, starting with whoever the actor is or whoever who's handling that weapon. There's safety precautions that they're supposed to be following, and it goes all the way back to the armorer. It comes all the way up front. There's so many people involved in that safety with weapons, and then it just moves all the way out with everything else. I mean, it goes on and on. Like I said, Frank can speak more to that, but that's why I carry a $150 million policy of liability.
Yeah.
And that's not because I want to. That's because it's a necessity.
Yeah, it's got to be. Frank, I want to go off the subject of actual implements of danger and safety protocols. And I've seen you, as I've seen all of you, in different situations when you're performing your craft in pretty much life or death type things. I've seen you in the end zone getting some crazy stuff happening. Is there something you think about before going to work? Like, hey, I can get hurt today. Or is it just, I go do my job and you're kind of not thinking about it?
I mean, I don't ever think about that. And I feel like it'd be the same thing. And I mean, we obviously, for some reason, love using sports analogies on the show. But, like, you can get seriously injured playing football or playing some sport like that. But if you go out there as a wide receiver and be like, oh, man, I might get seriously injured today. Like, you're going to probably get hurt. Because then it's in your mind and you're kind of almost speaking it into existence. But so no, that's not really something, because then you're playing with fear, right? Then you're working with fear. And if that fear is instilled in you, I feel like you're going to be more prone to make a mistake in a critical situation that could lead to something, not necessarily death, but a serious injury or something like that.
Yeah.
So no, it's not really something I would think about.
Claus, do you think is there something that scares you about what you do professionally, or?
I'll talk to Steadicam on this. Actually, one step above what I got certified with in Steadicam was a training course about movie sets, stepping on cranes, wearing the rig, how to release the entire rig if you're going into a body of water. The safety precautions, because I'm still tethered to somebody if there's a line. So yeah, I've never been exposed to that.
Right.
I didn't have to take that course because I don't shoot movies. I'm not on film sets. I'm not on any shoot that would constitute me doing those things. But yeah, I mean, there's things where if I'm on the studio and I'm switching elevations, I'm stepping up, stepping down, going side to side, moving laterally, and there's a lot of things that can go wrong. I could trip backwards and have the camera break my nose. I could fall forward, break the entire camera system, and then be on the line and probably never work in that studio again. So I'm not like afraid of death per se, but yeah, there's a lot of things that can go wrong, especially when you're tethered to a system that is heavy and expensive.
Joe.
And I feel like if you have
No, go ahead, Frank.
just to go right off of what Klaus is saying, like when you have enough confidence in like your own skills and abilities, and you've had enough experiences where you can kind of either see things happening or anticipate those situations, then it's like there's no reason to be like fearful of any of those types of situations.
100% agree with Frank.
If you've had training, like Klaus said, or
Right.
anybody that's doing those big film sets or anything like that, you have that training in you, instilled in you. So I don't see it as something that should scare you from going to work.
Yeah. Joe, I have an interesting question. In venues, sets, stages, recording studios, wherever it may be, there's people, we talked about training. There's people who have training and expect danger, like stuntmen. We'll pick the obvious one. So they kind of know that stuff's going down and things can get hurt. And then there's people who are kind of on the set, maybe craft services or, somebody just grabbed, the best boy or transportation. And they're not really thinking about this stuff. Who do you think gets hurt more? Somebody who's aware or somebody who's really not that aware?
I think it's people who are trained but not paying attention.
Interesting.
Those people you're mentioning, the ones that are they're out of harm's way. I mean, unless he burns his hand on a pot, there's craft services isn't getting hurt.
Or if they don't have enough food for all the crew, then they get real dangerous.
You're done.
You know, there's a lot of, you know, as soon as there's a word you all hear, is clear the set. Clear the set means you're not essential. Get the hell off the set.
Is that a universal?
And a lot of that is because you have to get out of harm's way. You know, when there's explosions going off, and I'm using the extreme stuff,
Yeah.
but it happens, you know, in basic things. But people who get hurt always lost their focus. You know, both of these guys were saying, you know, you're paying attention, your head's on a swivel, you're looking around. But when you're not, or you're distracted, I was working this weekend, and where I was positioned, I was stage managing on a live show, and where I was positioned, the jib arm was literally right here over my head. So when it would start passing, I would have to duck, and it would have to go over, and then it would have to, but meanwhile, I'm here. So I'm talking to talent, and I'm keeping all of that, listening to comms, but on the corner of my eye, I'm watching this jib arm sliding over my head. If I lost that focus, I'm not going to die, but it's going to hurt, and I'm going to kill his shot.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's what I'm saying. It's focus. It's always, always, always focus.
Yeah. Frank, Joe spoke about the gig you just worked with, that piece of equipment that was in the air, and I wanted to ask the question: with specialty camera operations, there's a lot of technology of stuff hanging, flying, zooming, you know, moving around. What about when that meets gravity and fails? Has it happened? Have you seen things like that? How do you overcome it? Do you just scream? What's what?
He just screams.
Just scream.
Yeah.
I'm kind of confused on the question. I guess, like, what do you mean when it meets gravity?
No, I mean, talk about the Jittercam. Like, how crazy could it get if that thing broke loose? Explain what it is, and then talk about. I got a Jesus from Joe, so it's got to be pretty bad.
I have never heard of the Jittercam falling out of the sky because, I mean, it's pretty well safetied. I mean, in multiple ways where if something were to, I mean, it's not new people building it. You know what I mean? We're all very experienced in what we do and extremely safe about building it. And you're building it in conjunction with usually house riggers, or if you're on a traveling show that has their own in-house people, it's people that are familiar with the equipment, so they're building a huge piece of truss. This one happened to be 80 feet wide from one end of the venue to the other.
Wow.
Was it the State Farm Arena?
Right.
And then we build a 80-foot track connected to that. And then we build the turret of the Jittercam, which is an upside-down jib that's eventually remote control operated by me and another operator together in tandem. So we build that on the track so it can dolly all the way from one end to the other side of the end, and then it flies around in a circle. It can go 360 about like 6 times one way, and then back 12 the other way. It elevates up and down, and then the other person controls the actual camera. So you're working in conjunction with that. Plus you're flying, like Joe mentioned, you're flying over the ring. Like, you know, I mean, as close, we do our math before we build it to see how close we can get to the set, which is at our apex, which is the complete, when you're straight out towards, at that particular part of the truss, how close you could be to the ropes, which we got it within 1.5 feet, which was perfect.
Wow.
So we could be basically right over them while they're fighting. And then, you know, if we came all the way back the other way to like the back of the house, we were flying over audience, which, I mean, it makes for really cool shots and everything like that. And I took I recorded some of our camera return just because it's a really cool looking shot. And if you happen to miss the show, then you can see what it is. But as far as anything like falling out of the sky, no. I mean, that's like obviously worst case scenario, something like that happening. But I personally have never been on any show especially with a Jitticam that has fallen out of the sky and you know, injured anybody. So
Understood.
yeah, no.
Understood.
Yeah.
Talking about getting cool shots, Gloz, have you ever thought about, or were in a situation where you were like, oh my God, I got to get this shot. This is going to be the greatest shot. Like, this is going to do it for this whole project. And then thought to yourself, man, I think I could die doing this thing, getting this shot.
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, there's always a cool shot that you want to get that maybe isn't really, you know, safe. Like there's a story of our friend Rick Cipher, who everybody knows. This is one of the funniest stories that I've heard that you guys told me first coming in, where he was getting the shot of the train with the brand new, was it an Alexa, Frank?
No. This was the first HD camera.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm going to talk about him because I don't really have any of those kind of stories. So I guess, and you could probably tell the story better than I could, but basically what he was doing was he was leaning over this train track and getting the shot of the train whizzing by in New York, you know, in the subway station. And I guess he was a little bit too close probably to the train. And I guess the train took the camera and destroyed it. Completely destroyed it. Yeah. So yeah, that's a perfect example of trying to get a good shot, maybe getting a little too close, getting a little too good of a shot.
Wow.
And having the elements, you know, be a little actually pretty dangerous because, you know, it could have hit the camera.
Sure.
Your eyes right against the camera. That could have hit the camera, went back in your face, you know,
Yeah.
really hurt him. So yeah. Happens a lot, but you just got to be smart about it. You know, like I'm not going to go stand over a mountain with a steady cam trying to get down into a canyon,
Yeah.
you know, hoping for the best.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
But you know, it's crazy because you see on whatever, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, these people that are climbing these huge towers, or they're hanging off of these buildings, taking these, I guess they're on the pole, you know, whatever that selfie stick thing is, and I mean, they got to be crazy doing that shit. Go ahead, Frank.
yeah.
Yes, but you just said a very, very critical statement.
Crazy.
Thank you,
These
Frank.
people that do that where you hear all these accidents and these really terrible things happening, or drones falling out of the sky and
Yeah.
killing people, or cutting their heads off, like cutting their fingers off, or whatever. These are not professionals, like industry professionals that are experienced and skilled at what they're doing. It's, you know, amateur people, or like, you know, not amateur people, but, you know, not at a certain level of skill.
Yep.
In that craft, and they're doing stuff that a professional would either know not to do or know how to be safe while
Yeah,
doing
how to
it.
manage it. How to manage it.
Yeah,
Joe,
those are them. I mean, that's the biggest problem, is technology in the wrong hands, and people not thinking beyond the scope of what they're attempting to do.
Yeah.
And it happens all the time. I mean, we see them, and we're going like, even young guys in the business who want to show off. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's just a stupid thing to do. I mean, I've seen, back in the music thing, I've seen guys walk out, young guys, who were saying, is that speaker on? I mean, they're talking a sound system, not a speaker. Is that up? And I didn't mean go put your ear against the speaker. Yeah. You're talking thousands of watts. And I've seen them walk up to a cabinet and do that. Okay, well, you're an idiot. Yeah. I can't even, that wouldn't even be an instruction I would give somebody.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is high risk, high reward, though. You know, like there's been times when Frank and I have been on shoots for Urban Visuals, and you know, he's kind of like, Scott, you think like I can get the shot with the drone? And I'm like, it might be a little dangerous. And he's like, I'm gonna do it anyway. But that's Frank. You know, he's not a consumer level like regular person going out and trying to get a crazy shot. Like he's a skilled drone pilot and specialty camera operator doing these things. So it's exactly to what your point is. Like, if the technology is in the right hands, then yeah, take a risk. You know, take a risk. Why not?
Like I know when I can, you know, take a risk or not.
Yeah, knowing your
And
limits.
I know the limitations of those.
Yes.
And I also would know the repercussions if I do take the risk and something happens. Usually it's not going to put somebody else ever in danger.
Yeah.
It would put either the piece of equipment in danger or myself.
Yeah.
And that's my own decision. I'm not going to make somebody else's decision for being in the way of danger.
Yeah. Well, I think.
Yeah, let me give you the Ricky story before you sign off.
Go ahead. Go. You're on.
So Ricky and I were both young. Ricky was working for Madison Square Garden, and they do these bumpers that when the show starts, and obviously they're all shots of New York. So they hand Ricky the first HD camera in New York City.
The very first. None existed.
The first.
That's it.
Ricky goes out and he's shooting what's known as bumpers, the lead-ins to shows. So he goes out with his producer, and producers are idiots, and they're like getting the typical shot that everybody sees. You stand on a platform and a train goes by, and the guy's like, oh, that's cool. Ricky goes, I got a better idea. And only if you're from New York do you understand what this is. There's the platform, and then there's the tunnel that the trains are coming from. Well, as you walk off the platform into the tunnel, there's a little thing right there.
The ladder.
Exactly. That puts the ladder that goes down that you're not supposed to be on. So Ricky went out, stood on this little platform, and you're this far away from trains coming in.
Yeah.
Because he wanted to get the shot of the train coming straight at him and then it whizzing by. So I saw you see the footage and it goes train, smash. And he
Fantastic.
the camera, fortunately, God gifted him because the camera blew out of his hands. He destroyed the camera, but it blew out of his hands. And he just stood. There's, literally maybe 13, 14 inches of a platform.
Yeah.
He would have been one of the stories we could have been telling right now.
You know what? You're absolutely right. Does this footage still exist? Do we have it anywhere?
I'm sure I could get it.
Oh, that would be such a treat. That would be such a treat. Gentlemen, thank you so much. I appreciate your feedback. And I look forward to seeing you on the next crew call. Take care, everybody.
All right, guys. See you later.
Okay, guys.